Hello and welcome to Buddhist or Global's Weekly News Highlight. I'm Dr. Justin Whitaker, Senior Correspondent for BDG. This week we highlight the news that Myanmar's ruling junta has destroyed over 100 Buddhist monasteries and Christian churches. We'll have a look back at recent BDG coverage of recent events in Myanmar, but first the news. The junta that overthrew Myanmar's elected government more than a year ago has destroyed in excess of 100 Buddhist and Christian buildings in central, northwest, and southeast Myanmar, the nonprofit news website The Irrawaddy reported this week. As ongoing military operations to extinguish civilian opposition to the coup continue. In the wake of the coup last February last year, the military-led State Administrative Council has consolidated its hold on power with violent crackdowns on public dissent and street demonstrations, which have continued in defiance of the military-led suppression. Even the country's venerated monastic sangha have found themselves in the military's crosshairs. Despite more than a year of violent suppression, the junta continues to face widespread opposition to its rule. Crackdowns on peaceful protest movements and civil disobedience campaigns have resulted in a rise in communities turning to armed resistance, often with support from existing ethnic militia groups. Junta forces have destroyed at least 6,158 civilian homes since the beginning of the coup, the independent research group Data for Myanmar reported earlier in March. The military is also accused of arbitrary killings, using civilians as human shields, and looting and burning homes and religious buildings. Domestic human rights groups report that the junta attacks in predominantly Christian Chin State have destroyed nearly 35 churches and 15 affiliated buildings, with a further 12 churches destroyed in majority Christian Kaya State. Additionally, the junta, which has publicly pledged to protect Buddhism, has destroyed, raided, and looted at least 50 Buddhist monasteries in predominantly Buddhist areas. About 89.8% of the population of this Southeast Asian nation identify as Buddhists, predominantly followers of the Theravada tradition. According to census data for 2016, Christians make up 6.3%, Muslims 2.3%, and Hindus 0.5% of the population, with tribal and other religious groups comprising about 1%. Groups representing all religious communities, including monastics and clergy, have taken to the streets and demonstrated against the military takeover. U Waryama, a Buddhist monk and member of the anti-junta Spring Revolution Sangha Network, was quoted as saying that despite claiming to be a defender of Buddhism, the regime has repeatedly demonstrated its willingness to attack any perceived threat to the military rule. Myanmar's military declared a year-long state of emergency on February 1st, 2021, after detaining President Win Min, State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi, and other members of the governing National League for Democracy (NLD) party. The coup d'etat took place just hours before the country's new parliament was due to convene following a general election in November 2020, during which the NLD made substantial electoral gains. The military, which had backed the parliamentary opposition in the national election, has asserted that it staged the coup in response to electoral fraud. However, the National Election Commission said that there has been no evidence to support these claims. The NLD won about 80% of the available parliamentary seats in the 2020 vote. Since seizing power, the self-styled State Administration Council, SAC, led by Military Commander-in-Chief General Min Aung Hlaing, has unilaterally amended the country's treason and sedition legislation in an apparent bid to secure impunity for the coup leaders. The United Nations High Commissioner Michelle Bachelet told the 49th session of Human Rights Council on March 21st that Myanmar's humanitarian crisis has continued to expand as systematic brutality by security forces has reignited pre-existing armed conflicts in multiple ethnic states. In response to the crisis, the International Network of Engaged Buddhists, or INEB, and the Clear View Project in Berkeley, California, have launched an international appeal calling for urgent humanitarian relief for Buddhist monks and nuns living in Myanmar in the shadow of the junta. In a message shared with BDG, the two organizations said that they are coordinating an urgent appeal to raise funds to support the humanitarian emergency in Myanmar that focuses on Buddhist monks and nuns. The Myanmar and Thailand-based human rights organization Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, AAPP, reported that as of March 30th, 1,722 people were confirmed to have been killed by the military junta. The organization noted that the figure represented only deaths that the AAPP could independently verify, and that the actual number was likely to be much higher. A total of 9,991 people are known to be in detention, with 965 sentenced to prison terms and 91 sentenced to death, some in absentia, according to the AAPP. BDG has reported extensively on the unfolding crisis in Myanmar. In January, we brought to you news of Buddhist monks fleeing the violence in eastern Myanmar. Last November, we brought you the voices of religious leaders across the country decrying the government's violence. And as the coup unfolded last year, our columnist, Hosen Allen Sanaki, offered two poignant reflections. As he said then last March, quote, "Change itself is in the hands of the people of Myanmar, particularly the civil disobedience movement, which includes all sectors of society. We can support this movement even at a distance. Activist friends in Thailand have been working closely with allies on the ground in Myanmar to meet the requests of the CDM for nonviolence training, organizational resources and skills, and reliable links to media outlets. There is a critical need for communications, providing international phone cards to pro-democracy activists, and setting up encrypted online networks for regular updates on safety and security action alerts and potential hotspots. There is much more we can do. Keep your eyes and ears open. As bodhisattvas, we can never turn away from the suffering of our sisters and brothers." As always, we'll have links to this week's main news story and recent coverage of Buddhism in Myanmar in the video description. Use the comments below to let us know what you think about the hope that Buddhists in Myanmar and around the world can bring change in this war-torn country. And as always, be sure to check out our website, buddhistdoor.net, for more on this story, as well as other news and features about Buddhism around the world.